The only thing I'm hoping, and I'm sure you will address it in your presentation, is the financial impact of to the district of having to implement new numeracy program, for example. That was a very expensive endeavor at the elementary schools that we took on in 2009.
Yeah.
What was the word?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry?
Growing with math?
Growing with math. And I don't even want to put a number on what I think we spent on it, but and I don't know that I think there's mixed reviews about how well that's been received by the students. So if we had to then start a new, invest in a new language arts program, or we had to invest in a new numeracy or literacy program, what are those budgetary impacts to the district? Because we're going to bear those. Now when I say we, I mean all of us will have to bear them because there's no money coming from anywhere other than our pockets and our homes.
We have about a 2 to 3 year window before educational publishers will be able to roll out total programs, such as the ones you're talking about, that are properly aligned. And so until in that interim period, it will be kind of a Chinese menu approach, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, something from column A, something from column B. And I think that's where the role of our coaches and the work that I'm doing in my office is essential at this point, because we have to provide our teachers with something.
Oh, no doubt.
So,
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just trying to understand what the financial implication of posturing for this, 2-3 years down the road, and what ultimately we would need to implement as a district to be in alignment with that. That's all.
And
I know that's hard to say right now, but I'm not asking for an answer.
And part of the answer may be in open source, it may be in online resources, it may be in online learning resources, so we'll have to consider those pieces as well, in addition to traditional textbooks that are the kinds of things that we're used to using.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue. Our Board of Education calendar, we have one correction to make on the Board of Education calendar. On Wednesday, February 27th, there's policy listed as 6:30, school improvement to follow. There's also a special budget meeting listed at 6 o'clock. I have a feeling that might run longer than a half an hour. Policy and school improvement are repeated again on March 6th, so we're just going to eliminate Wednesday the 27th, policy and school improvement, because they'll follow the next week anyway. So
That was the only correction.
we're just going to take that out. And for the public, obviously, our February and March personnel meeting may be flexible because it follows budget. As we know, we have a big budget meeting coming up. Instead of sitting there for 3 hours in budget and then trying to stuff through personnel, we may have to make that meeting through. So that one might change as we go along. Other than that, any questions or comments on the upcoming meeting schedule? Okay. Was that a thought or coming?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, discussion items. State financial statement.
As you can see, Danielle isn't here tonight. She won't be with us for a while. But, is there any questions regarding, there's the projected amounts?
Do you want to just
Go ahead.
hit some of the
Yeah.
salient points?
Yep.
Do you want to?
Go
You want me to?
ahead.
Okay. We had a chance to review this at budget. Just some notable things, at least on the life insurance area, we're coming in under because of a premium reduction on life insurance. It's nice to see that sub rates went down in insurance over the course of time. Severance, we had less severance pay, less retirements, so on and so forth. Unemployment, the reason why that's down generally is fall-offs. There's really no other way to put that. People are just aging, not aging out, but falling off of the...
Reached the limit.
They've reached the limit, so they're no longer on unemployment. Oil, mild winter. That's really about it. I mean, those are the notable issues. We did ask Danielle to give us some insight to, I think it was para overtime.
Yeah, I took a look at
Did you?
that. That was the Kelly Parasubs that was
Parasubs, yeah.
unusually large for the month of April. Went back and looked at it, it was a legitimate amount that was invoiced. We just had a lot of people out during that previous late March, early April period.
Okay. Mainly illness.
Mostly illness, personal illness.
The other piece was the reduction in our tuition, public and private.
Yes.
We have savings this year so far.
Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Budget committee reviewed this for a period of time and recommended it to the board for approval unanimously. So that's a motion.
We have a second for that motion? Discussion? Anybody? No one? Andrew?
Textbooks, item 5640-1. Clearly appears that we're not going to spend the money that was budgeted.
At the district level, we spend every penny. I think that's coming from the school level.
The elementary students,
We-
middle school, mostly.
In November, we put a freeze on all accounts, not knowing what was going to happen with out of district, which has been traditionally overrunning, not knowing what the winter was going to look like. We are currently, now that we got all our special ed costs, as has been done in every year in the past, they're going to be stocking up on the textbooks for next season. And a lot of the accounts were held to make sure that we were not going to be in a deficit situation.
It's always a concern, I mean, it's, every year I always focus in on how I assume administration through the building overseers and coaches and all of those people who create curriculum, design what's needed as far as curriculum. And one of the things I assume every year is they're pretty much right on target as far as what they need for textbooks, and yet it never seems like we spend that money on textbooks. So I'm just a little concerned that what we think we need for textbooks should be spent for textbooks. The kids need it, it's part of their curriculum. I'm not totally versed on just how important the textbooks are, but it goes not just the fact that you don't have the book. I just am concerned that the curriculum that you project out for the different classes, are you actually implementing those courses with the revisions, with the new textbooks? Did I explain?
Absolutely. I have to do some, I can back into this, I believe. I believe what we're finding in the budgeting process is that we're buying less hard books. Like you would think of a textbook when we were in school.
Because you don't teach.
Big, heavy books, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the schools are using more and more consumables or smaller workbook type of instructional supplies.
Topical things.
So,
Depends on the topic.
many very topic-specific things. And we're finding that over time that they're less expensive. And sometimes they're, instead of buying 77 consumable instructional supplies, in some circumstances, they just make copies.
Yeah.
So it's less expensive to the district that way than buying a new consumable. Correct me if I'm wrong,
No, that's correct. It's-
because I see the copies coming home with my kids.
Our instruction is much less textbook driven, so it's not
Right.
as crucial that every child have a book in every subject. Because as we mentioned with the Common Core, it's no longer start with chapter 1 and then get all the way through all the chapters by the end of the year.
And what reading level?
Part of what is also driving this is the fact that these budget figures were prepared prior to the knowledge that we've gained this year about the Common Core standards and what we need and what we don't need. So some purchases were frozen and some purchases were delayed to say, what is it that we really need? We don't need to purchase an additional 200 copies of Mice and Men, but we're going to need to purchase 50 copies of a nonfiction source on the American Revolution and 50 copies of a nonfiction source on a science topic. And David is correct that it's less common to buy an earth science book and more common to buy a series of books on plants and animals or ecosystems or some individual topic, because those can be traded among grade levels more easily as the standards are being changed and shifted. So those tend to be less expensive.
And I'll go back to a concern that I voiced before. It's not necessarily that I'm concerned that you bought the textbooks. What concerns me is I know that you, especially the person who has curriculum, you work hard to revise, get curriculum upgrades ready for next year. And what I'm concerned about is that you're actually able to put them into practice for the beginning of the year, so these teachers who will have these revisions have them ready so that when they plan out their school year, they know what these revisions are and whatever tools they need, as opposed to having a situation which may or may not occur, which is you in your department have formulated intellectually through your committee these changes, and then you're just not able to get them implemented on the first day of school. So you project out that you're going to get these things done, but because of whatever reason you couldn't get the teachers on board or whatever, that concerns me, that if you have thoughtful planning, you're actually getting them implemented for the first of the year. That's my big concern, and I'm just wondering. I'm just using that number as an ability to get started in this conversation. And hopefully everyone understood, or at least you understood.
Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Daniel, Paul, anything on it? Okay. See no more discussion. All those in favor of the May financial statements? All those opposed? Unanimous? Budget transfers. You want to-
We have one budget transfer.
Transfer.
And it went from instructional supplies music to instructional equipment music. Those are our music stands.
Choral risers.
Choral risers.
Choral risers, okay.
They weren't safe.
Oh, these are the ones, well,
Yeah.
we didn't get the music stands. I apologize, yes, it's the choral music risers from Local Wetmore School.
We did talk about
Right,
the
the stands. Sorry.
Budget committee reviewed and approved, recommended it to the board for approval unanimously. So,
Second for the
anyone?
Fiona. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Okay, technology plan.
This was the same plan that was presented, received, go ahead, sir.
We received notification from Education Connection dated April 24th that they've completed the review process for our district's educational technology plan that was submitted to them and received by them on April 3rd. Our plan is fully compliant and can be sent to the State Department of Education. Please feel free to write or call with questions. It has been our pleasure to assist you in this process. Essentially, that's content of the communication back from Education Connection. As was anticipated, they did not comment on the strategies or the plan, or they basically reiterated our position that the plan is for the purposes of the district, for planning purposes, to begin to set some visions and priorities, and that it is a flexible plan, but and one that does not tie our hands, but one that helps us to determine what our future needs are going to be. They've recommended it to be filed with the state.
Motion.
Motion to
Motion
approve.
from Andrew, second. David? Sure. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, unanimous. Live TV broadcast.
Yep. The Ocho.
This is coming from
The Ocho.
school improvement, so would you like to lead us through this conversation, sir?
Yeah, I just, I'm a big advocate of putting these meetings back on television. I think I think everything that we've been talking about tonight, I think everything we've been talking about for a long time is best played out in front of the public, and I realize this is great, but this is not. In Torrington, we have a long history of people tuning in on a specific night, on Wednesday night, and looking at this, and a lot of feedback. It's embarrassing for a lot of us, and beyond that. At the end of the day, it engages people, it gets people talking in their families, in their communities, in their neighborhoods. And we're at a point where we just have to engage the public in every way possible. This is a great way. Cablevision wants us back on. The cost is relatively negligible. I'm sure we can find, manageable ways of doing it. It also allows the kid, the students to get involved. I think the ultimate goal would be to use our staff to train these kids. At this point, sophomore, juniors, and seniors, certainly juniors and seniors, should be able to set up a rig and produce a basic, live set like this and put it on Cablevision. I think it'd be a great experience for them. But the larger goal, I think, is just to get the public engaged in all this. This little conversation we had today, I could have made the same statement I did about technology review. I was almost going to do it, but I figured, I was going to make the same thing, that none of this technology coming out, none of any of this that we're talking about is going to improve public education if we cannot get parents in this town to basically reinforce to their kids that it is simply not acceptable to disrespect teachers, to disrespect staff, to hit, bite, scratch, kick, and certainly not punch staff. And unless we can get that to be to become a community awareness that this is a huge problem with public education, I don't care if you give every kid an Apple computer and they come into school, it's still not going to be an environment within which teaching can occur and learning can occur. So I think, this is great, but people aren't going to click on, but they will tune in live. And we, and the combined efforts of all of us to get the people in this town to really pay attention, that no matter what, you keep asking why are these boards of education, why they fail, why are public education failing so much? And if they hear from the horse's mouth during these meetings and they hear it over and over again, and it's the same thing, I think it will have, I think it might have an impact, and I think that we have to take every opportunity we can to do that. So this is an easy way to do it. That's the plan, Stan.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion? You got all that down, right? It was a long, lengthy motion, but.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're
No.
I guess I wasn't just, well, now we don't have to have the discussions.
No. Would you like to make a motion to put the?
Yes, I'd like to make a
back on?
motion to put Board of Education public meetings back on Cablevision.
Second from Fiona. Discussion? No, I
Further
did actually
discussion.
want you to do that. I was just teasing. I was teasing them about getting all that written down. Any discussion? Andrew, Daniel?
The only piece of discussion I'd have on this is, obviously, we may not be on live television, but we've got clear video, we have very clear audio on our meetings. To go back on live television and not be able to have everybody be able to hear us clearly in our discussions seems a bit useless. So until we can clarify the audio portion for the video, for the live broadcast, I'd say instead of just jumping in, why don't we try weighting it and doing a test run and seeing how the audio works. If the audio doesn't work, then we need to sit down and review what resources we need to put in to make it a clear, conscionable, understandable meeting for those viewers that wish to tune us in.
We, on a different topic, we do have a new recording device that will be digital, wireless.
Wireless.
Okay, the head nodded. That should be coming into place very, very, very shortly, so that as we go through our hearings and meetings, we can continue without interruptions. And that should help with the audio. I believe that's tied in with the video, the way they used to do it.
Yeah, and I was just
They
arguing
used to run through that box, right, to the.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think that was it. It was the output of that thing. And
So-
yeah, there were some issues, but I would just argue that, this is, again, this is not rewiring and, for fiber capacity. This is old technology, getting clean audio. It's not that, whatever it is, it's just not that expensive, and it's old technology, It's just putting TV, it's just putting, standard audio onto the cable that's already here.
John?
I support this entirely, but with some questions. Do we have any idea how many people watched us when we were
Absolutely
broadcasting
no.
before?
No.
Shockingly, with the budget hearings, I've probably gotten 200 to 250 complaints from different people that were very upset that they were not able to watch the meetings live, that they have completely lost touch with the Board of Ed and what's going on because they can't get here. And it really, for me, it was an overwhelming number. I didn't think that many people watched
I
this.
was afraid I was the only one home watching it.
John, I can tell you, Cablevision, their rep, through a third party, contacted me because I was thinking, you know, we'd have to fight to get the slot and the time, and we lost it, and they said, please put it on. We get,
Yes, they get quite a bit of support.
We could break and have commercials to help support us.
Next question.
Right?
Well, there you go.
See what I'm saying?
There you go.
Product endorsement.
Product endorsement. Brought by Dunkin' Donuts.
Product endorsement, that's great, David.
See?
That's what he's a maker.
Do we have to pull WNET off the air, however, to do that? You know, here we are, an educational entity, and we're pulling New York Public TV off the air so they can watch us.
We're far more entertaining.
I give them
But they
that.
have Channel 21 right next to that, where all they broadcast is, this is the public service channel. And so all they do is show that sign all day, unless Watertown's Board of Public Safety's meeting or something. But does it have to be 22? Do you know?
That I don't know. That I don't know.
And as far as replays go, don't pull my Saturday night Britcoms off to replay on Channel 22.
Oh, I don't know.
You know, I'm just saying, it'd
Team
be
programs.
nice if we could use the Channel 21 facility that they have there.
I'll ask. I'll ask you today.
But good idea, I support this.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I'd love to get students back involved. That's what we're about.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any comments?
Everyone's voice, great idea.
Just something, just to go back, I think one of the reasons why we couldn't go back on the air was, I don't know if it's, we had a difficult time getting a teacher or a volunteer to run the club. I don't know if it's a club or if it's an activity or, I know we paid them, but, so there was a little grease there. But are we gonna have a problem, are we gonna run into an issue implementing this if we don't have someone from the high school, for example? Or a not a volunteer, but someone from our teaching ranks to be able to help manage and produce this and organize it?
I don't know, I mean, my thought was we have staff who knows how to do this, and one of their tasks is to train kids to do this. I guarantee you, a 17-year-old boy, young man or young woman is perfectly capable of setting up this box and setting up these cameras and recording.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
And
That was just
have them trained, and then the students will do it. And yeah, we'll pay this.
we had a coordination issue with
Oh,
internally.
as far as,
Do you remember? I don't know if you remember.
We couldn't get a faculty advisor to do it.
is there a way around that? Does the faculty?
Yeah, there's a way around that. Just find your untenured teachers and say, you know, we really need
Thank you.
someone to cover this.
You know, we could ask our TEA chief negotiator to go to the president of the TEA and see if that's an issue.
Do you think? This shouldn't be.
It was your idea.
Don't laugh, Ellen, it's a policy question.
I know.
It's about to be a policy question before it goes back to school improvement. No, listen, I mean, honestly.
If they can't find someone, will they allow us to volunteer?
That's the other question, you know, so we could certainly have that.
Can this gentleman take charge of that?
If it used to be a TEA position with a stipend.
Yes.
We would have to get the TEA to release that position in order to use an outside source.
I was just gonna say, if he
Because it could be
knew how
great
to,
work.
That was
if
my-
he could actually do it, then why couldn't he just solicit some students or whoever and have a preference for?
That was my comment to Mr. Oliver,
Right,
to see
because
if they
it's-
would release it and then we
I
could.
think it's
go
a
with
shame
it.
that we have to even
That's
Well, it's
part of that
that's
discussion.
part of the contract, I mean, whether we like it or not, I mean, it's the reality of the contract. And if it's work that can be performed by the union, then they're entitled to sort of first right of refusal on it.
They are.
We've seen stranger things.
And we do have the children, because they do still do a morning broadcast occasionally, right, with the studio, Joanne?
They prepare a news program.
Right, so I mean, they run the cameras, they
It's
run
not
the
every day.
soundboards, they,
The middle school's doing it
so,
too.
I mean, we do have the talented kids. It's,
We have plenty of talented kids, it's just a matter of making sure that they can get here to do this, that's all.
But if we
I mean,
can have a coach, yeah.
It's not, you know,
The idea would be to
But
grow that
the idea
piece,
of,
is that to
it would be
have
a coach.
sit down.
Don't call it a coach.
no,
So, anyways, that's just the only procedural aspect that I was just concerned that we may or may not have an issue
well,
with.
if we approve it, if we vote on it as an approval, either school improvement or the TEA negotiation can reach out to the TEA.
Yeah, absolutely.
We would go back to school improvement to have them come up with a deal with Cablevision to make it work. We'll go to our technology department
They
to
said they
test
just
the
need to be
sound.
noticed. They just need to be noticed.
Right.
This, you know, this head end, this is hot. We actually control, we actually have the ability, if I understand correctly, to cut into their programming whenever we want.
Go
Quite
on.
frankly, we flip the switch. We'll take
Right,
our
well,
news
we would go to our
broadcast off.
technology liaison to make sure our sound quality is there,
Right.
and then draft the policy.
And then draft a policy.
Sure.
Honestly, I think that the teachers would be in favor of doing this because it's sort of at the root of everything they do in educating a whole child and engaging them. So, no, it's true. So,
All right.
Any further discussion?
The motion on the table right now is to approve.
The motion on the table is to approve putting the Board of Education meetings back on TV, and seconded by Fiona, I believe, if I remember correctly. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Now, the different groups will,
Will you have will the superintendent have a conversation with the TA, figure out if there's going to be any issues there?
I just Oh, yeah.
Oh, you
I
want
owe
to do
you.
it?
no, he doesn't.
No, I defer to the administration. It's just one less call after me.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, policy 3050, school activity funds.
We're back again.
If you would like to, you can run.
There was a typo in the policy on page 9, number 22. This was brought to my attention by the PTOC president, that the cost associated with providing the security bags and bank deposit slips will be borne by the district. That's what it's corrected to. Previous to this, it went out saying that it was borne by the student activity fund, so we just need to make that change and have the board be aware. Do we need to vote?
So
We
change
would,
the policy.
yeah, we would have to change the
Okay.
policy. We would need a motion. And
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Rivera, second by Mr. Marola. Discussion. Fiona?
I would like to see, I don't know if it's in this final policy, but something in here where the individual groups have to elect to either be in or out as part of this policy.
Oh, I think it's in here somewhere. I have it.
They have to elect. So you're saying that.
I want it to be clear to the public that in no way is any group or organization being forced into doing this. If you want to do this and take the benefits of being under this policy, then they can elect that. If they don't want to make that election, they could go out.
They could go out on their own, they could have to be held to that accounting standard, they'd have to file for a nonprofit status,
Right.
so on and so forth, which is a very tenuous and expensive process for them.
But would we want them to vote every year, or this is a year in and year out, or that would be a whole other level of discussion?
I mean, I'm looking even at other groups that may want to. I think it's important that we know who's in, who's out for groups that are not employees of the Torrington Public Schools under student activities.
Well, for the rest of the group, we have scheduled a special meeting for the 29th, because there is a tremendous amount of confusion among the public about the school activity fund policy 3050, that we are railroading and forcing groups to join us. The 3050 policy is not a PTO policy as has been referred to. It applies to booster club, varsity club, chess club, tennis club, every other club that uses our tax ID number has essentially been operating with their own checking accounts on their own way. With government funding getting tight, all of the governments and auditors have said, there's all this money that's never claimed. It's not on our financial statement as a tax-free entity. They don't file tax returns. So it's, you know, they look around and say it's unclaimed money that should be taxed. They have called us to put it under our umbrella because they use our tax number. In order to do so, a set of regulations was passed down as to how that has to be handled. No organization will be forced to join, but if they don't want to be part of the student activity fund, they would be obligated. They can't use our tax ID number anymore. They can't use our insurance anymore. They would have to go out and become a 501c3 independent.
Or
and they would-
dissolve.
Or dissolve. And they would have to, you know, get the accountants, the lawyers, and form their own nonprofit organization.
Or
It is,
profit organization.
or a for-profit organization. I mean, this has been an 18-month process that has been very stressful to get everybody, because there's so many different groups involved and everybody has their own need as to how they fit into it. So it's just, we're gonna have a meeting on the 29th, invited in all of the public, every family, every taxpayer, every person that wants to know anything about it, and we're gonna sit down and look here. So it's changed to here, right? Here. And just explain to everybody the content of the policy. No one is forced to join. If you don't want to be part of it, you don't. You can stay off on your own, but you cannot continue to function under our umbrella. We're going to have to add, I'd actually like to see policy 3050 pulled personally. I would like to see PTO removed from the policy. I would like to see school community group replacing the term PTO so that it's a broader, instead of people honing in just on one group and everybody under the opinion we're just going after one group. I think if you take the word, the acronym PTO out of there, it eliminates a lot of confusion, because a school community group could be anybody, not necessarily specific to PTO.
It doesn't specify PTO. It's a school family partnership fund.
It does have school family, I thought we still had PTO in
No,
it.
school
We did take
family
that out?
Yes,
All right,
we took it out.
okay. I thought that was still in there.
Nope,
It's,
it's not in there.
we have to look at the other thing that's popped up in the last week is making sure in the policy somewhere it states that no group under this policy, or really for any other policy, can identify themselves as the Torrington Public School System or as a specific school. If you're the chess club, you send out a bulk email, you can't send it out as THS.
Right.
You have to send it out as THS Chess Club. If you're a band, you have to send it out as THS Band. If you're, because we have groups that are sending out emails, bulk emails, and they're listing themselves as the school. And it led to a lot of confusion in this last week that the school system is requiring people to do something, and that's not the case. It was just someone put in the header that they were a particular school. And that led, I talked to legal, we have a letter that I received from Rich Mills that will be going out to the identified chairperson, president, or whatever of each group that is currently identified under us, that lets them know the legal ramifications that they cannot represent themselves as a Torrington Public School System. They're more than welcome to use THS Chess. I'm only picking on you, Joanne, because you're here. THS Swimming, THS Football, THS whatever. But they have to separate themselves and not say they're THS, because then they're representing. Yes.
No, just a thought. You had mentioned pulling this in light of the PTO being in there, which it's not. But would it make sense to not approve this at this point, just sort of table it until after the special meeting? So that way we wouldn't have taken action on something and sort of put it in stone.
My only concern with that would be, they're gonna have to make an election before school gets out, because technically July 1st, they're supposed to be on
Right.
books, these different groups.
It's just a word that's being changed. It's already been approved.
Yep.
So we just need to change
Right.
this word.
But we have someone on the board who's asked to include something in the policy that's not there presently. So that's why if we,
We can always add.
again, it's
Correct.
it's whatever the greater good of the board, and whatever the majority of the board says. If the majority of the board says that elections aren't necessary, and we're comfortable with policy as it sits, well, that's what the majority of the board says.
Well, there might be other issues that come up also that.
That's what I was thinking. If we're gonna have this
So-
meeting, why not just table this for the moment?
Because I think the ramifications of the not changing this now will be greater.
Over deposit slips?
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
But I realize that
But I mean,
certain,
there's other
That's
things.
reality.
but there's certain school groups that
It's
have
myopic,
elections
it's a
coming
myopic
up.
view.
Well, there's certain school groups that have a need, have an election coming up. But as a board, they're a board, we're a board. We have to call special meetings all the time, like the one before this meeting, the one on the 29th. I mean, we're required to call a special meeting. If this meeting has to be called, they would just have to call another meeting. I mean, they'd have to find another day they could get together and vote. I'm just throwing it out there. It doesn't have to be. It's just my recommendation.
Are any of these groups seasonal? For instance, a fall sport center group?
That are,
Any of these student activity members, the people we're worried about, are any of them associated with seasonal sports?
Yeah.
Wouldn't be active this time of the year?
Uniforms.
not the ones that are concerned with the policy.
You have athletics in there, you have drama.
Everyone will be covered by
Music.
this.
Every, right,
It's,
every.
it's a very broad base of the school. That's all. I mean, we're just talking about the point of view.
We're talking about people having special elections to choose to participate in this, right? Is that what we're doing?
I think it's larger groups, big groups.
Well, it's all groups, right?
It's all groups are
It's the
covered.
chess club, it's also.
It's everybody.
The soccer.
Right, but it's a larger group
Yes.
that are having
Right.
issues.
Right, well, I guess I can't make a second motion, I was just making a statement. So, I'm done with my discussion. Your motion is still on the floor to make the change.
Is the main meeting a policy meeting or the special meeting?
It's a policy.
Is it posted as policy or both?
Posted as policy, special policy meeting to explain this policy. It's not required the whole board attend. If you want to come, you're more than welcome.
I just know if we can make.
Did you make a motion, Ellen, to change the words?
Well, originally, yes.
Yes.
I don't know that
Oh, that's enough, Kristen.
Chris did, maybe first.
Chris is in-
So that's the motion on the floor right now. So it was just as part of the discussion, Fiona brought up the notion of getting elect to be a part.
I'd like to just change the.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, it's, we
Well,
have
that's the motion that's on the floor. Any other discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion of changing the word from
Organization to district.
organization to district?
Right.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Unanimous?
Thank you.
30-50, so to go into further discussion on the 29th. 6095, graduation requirements.
Mr. Johnson?
Yep. Had a lengthy discussion at the last policy committee meeting over just the definition of what a credit is under the graduation requirements. The former language was very specific in terms of the length of a class period, how to define a credit. With the onset of online learning, with the change of schedule at the high school, we need a broader definition of what a credit is. The committee kicked this around for quite a while, and the major change that we put in to the original proposed language is only credit-bearing options approved by the board, such as online credit learning, and then those bullet points broaden that definition. We heard tonight that we have a number of students that are poised to receive graduation credit. And under the old policy, it doesn't match up with with how credit is now earned. So this change would allow us that flexibility going forward. It was unanimously approved by the committee, bring it forward to the full board.
Committee chair, let me make a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Do we have a second to accepting the change, Fiona? Discussion.
I go back to the situation we have with online learning, as far as fitting that all in with attendance policies, how they have to, I mean, a good question, I mean, at least I think it's a good question, is a student takes 3 regular classes and he gets 1 credit for math and online learning. He's going to get a Torrington High School diploma, or is he going to get a special diploma? But he takes 5 classes, all online learning. He gets a Torrington High School diploma, he gets a...
I think that's addressed in the online learning policy, the limit to the number of credits that can be earned online.
It's the same
Yeah.
paper.
And my question, and that's just an example, my question is, does this policy cover how, as we go forward with online learning, to cover any type, those types of discrepancies or ambiguities of how online learning is going forward with what our standard traditional policy of graduation requirements? I mean,
And I think, as Sue was pointing out, you have to look at it in conjunction with the actual online learning policy, which sets out how we define online learning and what it constitutes. All this is doing is adjusting the credit portion of the graduation requirement. So in order to answer your question, Andrew, you really have to put those 2 policies side by side to get the answer to that. It does define what online learning is as opposed to traditional.
and is the state having, or is this an issue at the state level as far as, I mean, ultimately, your concern with graduation is what the state, Connecticut Department of Education requires, and is our policy in line with what we know their standards are, as far as?
Beginning with Public Act 10-111 that set out the qualifications for online learning, the state has stepped back from strictly requiring seat time as a criteria for awarding credit, and has opened up the possibility of awarding credit for online learning experiences, as well as internships, mentorships, and other types of authentic work experiences. So that's already been captured in state law that makes this possible.
Kind of a word you use, possibilities, doesn't sound really very definitive of what that actually means, though. I mean,
The law that I mentioned does specifically address online learning, but I even mentioned in my presentation, it opens the door for districts to have the ability to award credits for criteria other than strictly seat time. And that's the change, I think, that has been reflected in the
I
policy.
think what Sue was saying, and I caught the same word, Andrew, I think it's not required that we do that, but it opens the possibility that we can. Under the old rules and under the old regs, that might have been difficult. So the state is now offering that flexibility to districts.
To boards
They're
of
not
education.
requiring us to do it, they're allowing, the language allows us to do it.
and when we do these possibilities, do we have to somehow inform the state to get a stamp of approval? Or are they gonna let us unilaterally make these decisions ourselves
At the authority of the
Yeah.
Board of Education.
at the local?
We'll be looking at other ways for students to earn credit. You know, as you saw with the invention convention,
Right.
those are, in order to complete that, yes, it comes out of the science, but it's integrated with writing, mathematics, research. And so you will see more authentic learning, project-based authentic learning, working with people other than the classroom teacher to construct a project. And so there will be many, many different ways that students will be earning credit.
A capstone project
Yeah.
too would probably be the same thing.
And that was a major part of the discussion at the committee level, was that the programs such as those being mentioned would have to be approved by the board to allow credit bearing. I think you raised that concern, so that now would have to come in front of the board.
Yeah, I just want to make sure as we approve this policy that we have the flexibility as we go forward to do what we know we are going to
They
try
are.
to attempt to do.
They are increasing the number of credits students will have to have by the time they graduate. in
Class
2000.
of 2018.
We'll be looking at this policy again, because the requirements are gonna go up, mandated.
Thank you.
Paul? Daniel? John?
I still look at these as sophisticated correspondence courses, these online courses, but that's where we are, that's where we are.
Sophisticated correspondence.
That's what they are.
And Vinny was disagree completely, can I take it and I
Fiona? Vince? No. Chris? No more comments? All those in favor?
wasn't.
Opposed? So unanimous. Okay.
We do know how to spell graduate.
Oh, it's wrong on the agenda.
It's only a-
Consent agenda.
It's stirred up.
Nobody noticed. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped field trips. Sorry about that, Sue.
No sense in it, though.
At your place, there is a replacement packet for the overnight out-of-state trips for 2012, 2013. This was necessary because Friday afternoon, after the board packets were distributed, we received a request from a high school group to add an additional international trip. And so in an effort to make sure that the information that you're getting is as complete and accurate as possible, that trip was added to this grid in addition to another communication that I received on Tuesday morning from a trip sponsor who indicated that the dates of her trip were going to change, but it did not impact the overall cost of the trip. So what you have on the grid before you are a list of the applications that I have received to date for requests for out-of-state, overnight, and out-of-the-country trips. The destination, the school requesting student group, number of students, if it can be determined at this point of the year, the cost and how the cost is generated, the per pupil cost. The cost of the district is the number of subs that would be needed for coverage. You'll notice that for trips at the elementary level, for the most part, no subs are requested because those teachers attend the trips with their students. And then there, as requested last year, a trip code column has been added to give you an indication whether the primary purpose of the trip is curricular, for a performance or a competition, as a reward or team building activity, or for personal enrichment. The very last page is the page that includes 3 trips that were tabled from the last meeting, but I don't know if you want to deal with those separately. The clarification on those trips that were requested by the Vogel Wetmore School to go to the Norman Rockwell Museum in Old Sturbridge Village. The clarification on that is that none of those trips would require any subs. The message from the principal says the entire 4th grade is going, so people who service that grade have been tapped as chaperones. The grade is a bubble of many needs for a variety of reasons. The positions filled by volunteers are taken by special staff. The Norman Rockwell trip will be chaperoned by a classroom teacher of each class and 2 additional adults. The additional adults will be parent volunteers unless there is a specific need for a special educator or English language learner parent to be able to accompany the group. So those are 2 separate issues. One is the entire bundle of trips for the 2012-13 school year, and the second issue is a request for the approval of 3 trips that were hoped could be taken this spring in June by local Wetmore classes at no cost to the district.
Do we have a motion to approve these? We have the motion second. Motion by David, second by Vince. Discussion.
Yes. I have a question. On the Patrick AFB Florida trip on the second page. Cost of district including subs is 0 or 500 or 500.
It depends on the dates. The 0 would be if the trip was scheduled during our April vacation, then Carl and Bohr would not require coverage to attend the trip. If it were either of the other 2 weeks, we would need to provide one substitute to cover for 5 days in order to execute that trip to the Air Force Base.
So they don't know when they're going?
No, it's
It's
gonna
one of
be,
those 3 weeks?
yes.
Okay, so that's to be determined.
But wouldn't it just be 0 or 500,
500.
not 0 or 500 or 500?
Well, she put it for each of the possible dates.
There's 3 days.
So,
Okay,
I mean, it's one.
thank you.
Vince, you had a question?
I did, financial aid offer, is, it says no and yes for someone, is the no because there wasn't a need for it, or they just don't offer it for that activity?
I think it depends upon the nature of the trip, particularly those that are for personal enrichment or that are expensive or out-of-the-country trips. But those are kind of cost prohibitive for some members of the school community. In some situations, the schools utilize the school activity fund or PTO fundraiser in order to defray the cost, so that causes that column to vary.
Do you know if there's any trips that happen where kids are denied because they just don't have the money, we don't offer financial aid for it?
Go ahead.
There's always the principal's fund that will provide the expense for
Okay.
a child who can't afford it.
All right.
There's a way.
Thank you. All right.
John, anything? Fiona?
Just had a question. Fort Squires trips, Macy's Day Parade, and the Bouncing Bulldog Workshop. It's got 3 subs for each. Is that, we would need 1 PE sub for 3 days, not?
Yes, one staff member will be absent from school for 3 school days in order to accompany her group on the trip.
So it's not 3 times?
No.
And then, is it the same, well, not the same one picture for the Holyoke High School Six Flags New England, Massachusetts trip on May 17, 2013?
Yes, that's
3
a,
subs for 1 day?
which,
It's the middle school
Okay.
band.
there's 3, I believe that there are 3, I can look at my check, 3 faculty members for 1 day, so $300. And I have the trip form right here, if I can pick that up, but I believe that's what it is. The 3 music teachers are going with the group.
So will there be music students left behind? Is that, who will they be working with if 110 of the music kids are going? I guess is my question. Or just not all students go on this trip?
If we don't need coverage, then that would be the maximum amount that would be necessary. My hope would be that we would provide internal coverage, Mr. Gowsey was here, wherever possible, or combine classes, so that it wouldn't be necessary to secure that many paid subs to do that. Ms. Creedon can attest to the fact that I frequently remind trip sponsors to provide internal coverage whenever possible.
Absolutely.
Paul?
I have a question about the December 20th, 2012 Metropolitan Museum of Art trip. It's my understanding that there was a related trip this year that, because of some bizarre circumstances, ended prematurely. And I'm wondering if the staff has done a postmortem on that trip and seen to it that future trips of the same nature will not end up having the same results. I think I put that as Doug opinions I'm capable of doing. Is there
Very well
someone who
said.
can speak to that issue? No?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
You're not aware?
Maybe only the parents knew about this and students.
There was, the
the museum actually has a limit for the number of participants from a particular group. Like, you can't come with a group of 100, they have a cutoff. And Clarendon High School exceeded that cutoff, and there was some disciplinary issues within the museum that the Torrington High School was asked to leave, and the trip ended early.
Just looking to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I mean, just want to be sure that there was again, a discussion and analysis and,
I would question if we're even able to go back, because
well, it was my understanding that that's why I'm surprised to see it here, so.
I understood we couldn't go back for a
At
period
least
of time.
that's what parents are hearing, there's plenty of time to make adjustments on this, so I would just recommend that some discussion be had with the appropriate people, and I think we can move on.
Yes. I heard the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Andrew, do you have anything? No. That was enough for you? Daniel? Okay, see no further, yeah, I think. You had your chance, I'm sorry.
I thought they dropped Philadelphia for the DC trip.
Yes, that was, they go directly to Washington, DC. We discussed having that removed.
Yes.
We review this, it's just Washington, DC. Believe it or not, we did go through this carefully together to make sure the numbers were correct.
Mine was just, I think, a typo question for the Holyoke High School. This was, we looked at it, $750 per pupil cost, can't mention, right?
For which one?
May 17th, Holyoke High School, Six Flags.
I think that's the cost of the bus. Yeah. Not a per pupil cost.
It's maybe $75.
What is the admission fee for the competition?
$75,000.
I think that might be the admission fee for the competition.
Each child?
No.
For the middle
We're
school.
going Friday. Oh, let's go.
We're going this
I'm
way.
driving. Great instruments.
You're going?
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
Wait.
see you, well,
And you have to go to the wrong side of town.
$5,900, and there are students attending.
100.
Yeah, 110 students.
well, what is the cost of the district is the question. This, the per pupil, they're not billing a pupil.
They're billing the pupil, the students are covering the cost of entry, admission, tickets, and bus transportation, which is a grand total of $5,900, and the teacher who submitted the application did not do the math correctly, so it should be considerably less than that.
I think they should be able to come speak to that.
Their trip will be delivered at a considerably lower price, $59 per student.
So I'm not ready to we have a grant, right?
I'll stop. I'll stop.
This was in the packet, the same, this one just has one additional trip on it.
Yeah, that's what I need. I'm crossing them all.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So you want to approve it as amended?
Does anyone want to cancel the Costa Rica trip and upset those three sitting there?
I know, that's what they wanted for. It's okay, it's there.
Yes, sir.
Chairman Trop, I would just like to go on record and say my commendation to you for putting this on the radar, I believe last year, for board reconsideration in the way we do these trips. I think it's resulted in a far, far more efficient and justifiable process for the board and for the district, and I think the results will be seen in far more, whatever, educationally valid experiences. So I think you deserve some credit, a lot of credit for that.
Thank you. You guys want to say anything about your trip? mean, nobody else other than Kevin hung out, so you might as well
Yeah.
have a moment in
Well,
silence.
we really like you guys, so it's no big deal.
You might be the only group.
You haven't been here long enough.
You're in a group by
I like your
yourself.
shirt.
Oh, thank you. Figured that would be represented. So basically, we just think that this trip would be something that would be a really cool opportunity because it would be a really hands-on and interesting way to research biodiversity and ecology and looking at different ways of bringing more green and eco-friendly methods into our community, which is part of it. And then in addition, there's a whole other aspect of learning about really just the culture down there, which is kind of an interesting part of it, because it's not only are you there learning about the science in a completely unique environment, but you also have the other influences and you can see things in a different way and not just the American way and how things are going here, because Costa Rica is actually a huge hotspot right now for creating new technology as far as, you know, ecological things, and as far as creating more green technology, they're actually becoming this really big factor in that, which is kind of interesting. So that's why I think it'd be very, very cool for us to kind of get in there and then bring back what we learned and try to see if we can influence the community, because we've been bringing up different projects we could maybe do to help out and everything. But I think that this would be really something that would be special and, you know. So obviously we'd really appreciate it if we could go.
Yeah.
We have our board
Good
meeting.
time of the year for Costa Rica too.
Thank you, Kevin. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. You guys go to Costa Rica.
Travel safely.
Yeah, but
Don't drive.
we want more than a t-shirt.
Okay, you
Yeah,
guys.
we want-
We don't want one of those, all I got was this
I'll bring you
t-shirt.
back something cool.